And that's exactly what Dr. Helena is going to be talking about, feedback time. Following this, we're going to present 2 cases because we have to take all the learnings and go back to our trainees. So even those of you who have not registered earlier but are attending, please collect the certificates as well. Thank you.
Thank you again for sticking with us in this adventure, this journey on medical education. So it's feedback time. I think my presentation is already presented, is already done with the previous marvelous lectures that we have been listening to. So if we go to feedback, feedback can be defined as kind of a regulatory mechanism where the effort of an action is fed back so that it can be modified. But the idea of this modification is always for improvement, for improving the future action. So the goal of this presentation is to be able or more able to create a culture of feedback and articulate the concept of underlying feedback with the learning environment culture, explaining challenges in giving feedback and engaging learners to change their practice. So making learners welcoming their feedback and describing 2-3 feedback structured models. My presentation is alive, as you can see. So we will focus on the concept models and guidelines. And where is feedback in the assessment cycle? Feedback is, we can divide assessment in 3 great moments. Before the learning experience, during the learning experience, and after the learning experience. Before is when we think about diagnostic assessment. During is when we provide feedback. And after is when we assess in terms of summative assessment. And this can be designed, I don't know what's happening in my presentation, I'm sorry. I'm not clicking in any button, it just moves by itself. Diagnostic, if it's before. Formative, as we saw earlier, if it's during, it's given during the learning experience, and afterwards as the summative, which is very useful as well. And also the diagnostic step that provides us with an information of the needs assessment and defines our group of learners. When we think about feedback, we are thinking about assessment for learning. And when we think about summative assessment, we are thinking about assessment of learning. So this presentation is mostly focused on assessment for learning. Feedback should be based on multiple sources of data and evidence, as we have seen today in the presentation that focused on the multi-source tool for assessment. It's a process that involves skillful interaction, and we will see in a minute how we can, base our model of thinking when providing feedback. Should be timely and frequent, should be at the workplace, should be workplace-based, as we also have seen this morning and the afternoon. Should be constructive, should be coupled with some plan for the future to improve those areas that were acknowledged both by the facilitator or the mentor and the mentee or the trainee. Should be welcomed by the learner, otherwise it won't be any use of it. And somehow I can connect this with presentation of the challenging case this morning. And should be tailored to the learner development needs and preferences. So feedback is very specific for each of us because we are all different, and should be tailored for our needs, specific needs of the learner in a specific context, and should be reciprocal. So the mentor should be someone who is trusted as more experienced in some area of knowledge or skills or competence, but also should be able to receive feedback from the trainee. So if evaluation is summative, should be scheduled, formal, based on past performance, should be usually is linked with some kind of giving a certification and grading the person, the trainee, saying that he or she is able to move on to the next step. It's usually a monologue, and it's based on global performance. Feedback is formative, is for learning. It's not about assessing learning, but assessing for learning. Immediate, timely, at the workplace base, should be informal, should be based on what is happening at the moment, should foster learning, so it's for learning, and should be also a dialogue. As we can see, there are several models that we can, have in our minds, the one that we would like most to develop and provide feedback, and should be very specific. Usually, feedback is based on teachers appraising performance and providing this appraisal data, and learners should improve their performance based on that information. But somehow, and mobility has also propelled this new lens that we should take into consideration when we are thinking about feedback. There is the social cultural lens, where the learner's improvement is at the center, and there are several specific and different aspects on the recipient, that the person, the trainee that receives feedback, the provider, and also the overall cultural lens that embodies, for instance, the culture of the organization where we work with. How can we give feedback? And these are several models that we can choose what we like best to apply. But I would say that the main message here is to create a relationship with the trainees, and let also the trainees create that relationship with the mentors or tutors or coach. It's a little bit different. Coaching generally is associated to a specific attainment of a specific outcomes, and then the relationship usually stops there, just like a coach in football. And mentorship is a little bit wider in terms of relationship. It usually involves a little bit blurring in terms of the outcomes, but what is mostly the flame of the relationship is that both the mentor and the mentee can grow as persons and professionals as well. So this is a very classic model, the model of the sandwich, which we start by asking, how did you think you go? All these models are based in a conversation that should be taken place very close where the action took place. It can be ideally in a quiet place after the action has taken place, but immediately after, so that it can be timely. And then tell the person that, well, I saw that you were a little bit not so confident when you were doing the capsulorhexis, for instance. And then what do you think you could do the next time? How can I help in this? So this is kind of the two parts of the bread, asking and then giving the meat or the great filling of the sandwich in the middle, saying that, well, I saw that you did this right, but I also noticed that you had some kind of, it struck me, some kind of a difficulty in this part. What do you think we could do for this to be more self-confident about this? This can be done very expertly. But I would say it also can be done very technically. And the person who's receiving feedback knows, oh, this is the plus. I'm just waiting for the, rainfall to come the next time. And then, oh, what happened? So this is to say that the ideal relationship is where the mentee and the mentor, when they are in this moment of feedback, they have this trust that this is a moment of discovery for the mentee, and the mentor is there, hopefully also to point out areas that could be improved for the sake of the development of the mentee. mentors that say that, oh, that's okay, you don't need to do anything more, it's fine, you're doing fine. The mentee, if he's, demanding about her profession or his profession, would say, well, I didn't feel so much about this or that. So there has to be a relationship of trust here. This is another model. This is the R2C2. Let's see what this stands for. It's building rapport, building the relationship first. This is the landscape of every good feedback. And then explore the reactions. This is kind of the first layer of the sandwich. That is, what do you think it happened? How did you feel it go? And then go on and with the conversation and see what the mentee says. And then for the end, the last C, so the first R for report, second reaction, R2, C2 for content, and then the change. This is very important. There's something to point about that can be improved. Other areas were excellent, but we have a plan for the future. Suppose that everything went right. Okay, but the model still applies. We must have a plan for the future. This is perfect. You don't need to worry more about this. But what would you do? What would you like to do next as a move on? The advocacy inquiry approach is something that we spoke about in this session, and it's about exploring how, and I would link this again to the first challenging case that we have this morning, understanding I think the second one, sorry, exploring the values, the culture that the trainee has that make him or her react in a certain way. And these frames would be kind of the construction, the building of the person, making this or that option or this or that behavior, the actions that led to these results that were perfect or not so perfect. And this would feed back exactly to improve better. And this is the so-called advocacy that is based on observation. I saw that you weren't so confident about doing the capsule rexes. And here is the good judgment. There are the indifferent judgment, the bad judgment that is completely to avoid and to, just say you did the terrible work. I don't know how you came here. I was so, this is completely to avoid. And you can be either as neutral, judging, or good judgment. And these people who stand for this model say that you should lead your mentee in the good way, and say that I think that if you had, for instance, a little bit your anterior chamber with more viscoelastic, it would be easier for you to complete your rexes. I am curious, and this is the inquiry, why you didn't do that? An example. And this is the GROW model. This is something that came from someone who was in the world of business, then went for the racing cars. But see what he says. We must see people in terms of their future potential. And this is something that as mentors, as coaches, as educators, as teachers, we should see in those whom we would like to help improve. And this is the GROW model says, what do you want? And make the person reflect, what do I want? What is my goal? What is my reality? What is my landscape right now within my goals? What options do I have to attain my goals? And okay, what's my plan to attain my goals? This is the model. And this is the last model, but there are many other models. And this is something very specific to link with the coach. And for instance, we can be coaches, for instance, and sometimes this happens in organizations. The trainees have the mentor, but they have their senior colleague who would be some kind of a coach for a specific training of a surgery, for instance. And the outcome there is to do that surgery as best as the trainee can. Report, again, relationship, expectations very clearly explain about the task that it's done, observe, conversation, and documentation. How can we create a culture of improvement and feedback? 12 tips. On the side of the provider, on the side of the mentor, create this positive learning climate, be a professional role model. And we know, we hear about very much about being role models, and we all know that we ourselves as role models depend on the context. If we are hungry, if we are in a hurry, we aren't always the perfect role models, and we must think about that, and sometimes that can come up in a conversation with our mentees. Observe performance and facilitate reflection of the learner, but be there to facilitate that reflection, that self-assessment. Don't leave the mentee just by him or herself. Sorry. And this goes. Then on the side of the mentee, foster growth mindset. Say that we cannot control everything. We have to be adaptive. We have to look at our failures as also opportunities to be better. Not at the OR, start at the simulation-based center and be protective of the patient as best as we can, but also take this kind of approach so that the trainee can be self-confident. And then the relationship is very, very important for feedback. Whatever model that we have, it's the scaffold of every successful feedback. Create these alliances between the teachers and learners. We are allies for your improvement. And also, if I'm the mentor, for my improvement as well, because it's my success. If I can see success in my mentees and say that that is the school of my organization out there, that's their school, it's here. So it's a kind of to be proud of. And also, for the organization, every organization has a special context, has a special hidden culture, and we have to take that into account when we are working in that specific context. So we have here some items, so balance, supervision, and autonomy. So be attentive, but at the same time simultaneously leave some autonomy, some space for the learner to have their space for development, create this continuing practice improvement environment, and foster this feedback culture. Okay, let's talk. We are not superheroes every time, but if we talk each other, we can find most certainly a way to the future in terms of improvement of yourself, of your actions, and also to me as mentee. So relationships at the center, effective feedback, being embraced by the learner as means to develop professional growth, not taken as something that is diminishing or taking self-confidence, on the contrary, and also being provided in a safe environment, create this relation of trust that should be timely, frequently, always ending with a plan for the future, constructive, and celebrate achievements and plan for the future improvement. Trust, dialogue. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make our learners and ourselves in general think. And this is our job, main job as facilitators. Thank you. And thank you. My presentation has completely come alive by itself.